Slide. There we go. All right. Marilyn, do you think we have, you know what, I can't see the bottom bar with my,
Let me look. I can see. Hold on. See what
so I can't see if people are still coming in.
Oh, let me see what's in here. It looks like there's still 11 people who are unassigned, but maybe only a couple that need to get moved in. So we're probably okay to start.
Okay. So when you were looking at the presentation that Alexis was doing, I'm just wondering if anybody had any ideas, you know, about any goals that they think that we might have missed, or you know, had ideas about what the type priority among these goals are. So what I'm going to do is go to the next slide, and well, yeah, I'll go to the next slide. We'll go goal by goal, and we can talk about each one individually, and then we can talk about this them as a whole. So in the caring community, there's Carlisle values its sense of community and the well-being of all its residents. That's the vision. And the goal is to increase the range of housing options to meet diverse community needs, foster opportunities for intergenerational spaces, services, and programming, expand policies and services to meet the needs of all residents, regardless of age and ability, including Carlisle's growing senior population, continue to support Carlisle's commitment to high-quality educational opportunities for all, encourage and support resident participation and volunteerism. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 5 goals. So I think the first question is about the value. Do you think the value rings true for Carlisle?
Value?
Yeah, the value, which is that Carlisle values its sense of community and the well-being of its residents.
I think it does, you know, sorry, my dogs. I think one word that wasn't in there is diversity.
Okay, so you think would it be better if it said Carlisle values its sense of community, diversity, and the well-being of all of its?
Well, maybe not. It just recognizes, you know, when we had those immediate short-term goals and long-term goals. I mean, I would have put something like that in there as in terms of community. I mean, housing could be anyone. So I think, I don't know. That's one thing I think wasn't addressed.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. Is there anybody else who has some opinion about the value? And then moving on to the goals. How do you feel the goals fit the value of diversity and well-being of its residents and sense of community? Are there any goals you would add to this list? Lee and Mark, you're both muted, so if you want to add, and Dan, you're all muted, so you should probably all unmute. So you can just jump right in.
I'm staying on mute because the dog is noisy.
Oh, well, my dog might.
If I have something,
well
I'll
also.
unmute myself.
Well,
Laura,
Sorry, I had a scheduling emergency. So
okay.
I'm with you now.
So the question is, are there goals that you'd add to this list? Have we missed something? Because, you know, we were also, you know, kind of.
I can't see the goals.
You cannot see the goals?
Yeah, hit the slideshow maybe.
Huh.
You know, I maybe share screen.
if
The
you
goals are the blue petals in the slide.
if you exit the full screen, it should pop up, and then you can open them.
Showing small, very small.
Okay, let me go back.
The goals, the list is easier to read than the blue.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I went to the next screen, but somebody said they can't see it.
It's not active on the PowerPoint right now.
Okay, you have two monitors probably.
No, I only have one monitor.
When you hit that slideshow button and the slideshow didn't show up.
Okay. You got to fiddle with it on the right side, top right.
I'm seeing the slideshow, but I'm seeing the slide that has the pedals as opposed to the one that has the list.
Really,
Right.
and I'm on the one that's got the list. Okay, so let me go back to the, do you all see that slide now?
You see, I see the PowerPoint window with the browser on the left, the slide in the middle, and
Okay,
sidebar on the right.
That's what I see.
Yeah, so that's what we all see. And then you hit the slideshow button and we still see this screen.
okay, so let me
That's
go
the
to this.
presenter screen, it seems, that we're seeing. Huge.
I don't know how to,
We have caring community, right? Is that what you're looking at?
with the pedals. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So I think, okay, there we go.
Can you see that? And is it big enough?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
Just hit the zoom on the bottom.
good.
Yeah, something like that. There.
no, because it comes off.
Yeah, that's fine, I think.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. Because I was hitting it in this share box, so I don't understand why it wasn't sharing properly, so I apologize.
No,
Um,
sharing.
so we have do we have a sense, or does anybody have a sense of what the highest priority among these goals is for the caring community? Should we, really be expanding, looking for let's say a community center for intergenerational spaces, services and programming? Is that top of the, list, or, because I think these are in no particular order, so.
See, the thing, Kate, this is RJ here. Can you hear me?
I don't see you actually, but okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Uh,
Oh, there you are.
the thing that I would like to add is, how do we know whether we are a caring community or not? By saying these things, does it make us a caring community? I don't know, unless we have some way of assessing it, unless is it just a feeling of goodness, or is it something like a variable,
I think these goals are how we know we're caring. For instance, if we have a good range of housing options that meet community needs, then we're caring about, the various needs of the various. So the vision is that we have a sense of community and the well-being of this is just a title. Caring community is a title for that vision.
I would say we care about the community, right? I mean, that's why we're all choosing this group, because we care about what's going on with the community, whether it's housing, socioeconomic differences, diversity, intergenerational. So I don't think I'm necessarily I am a caring person, but
I do think Kate's explanation was on. These are elements that make up a caring community when they're done well.
So my question is are we caring about the people in the community? Or is there some measure of that? I mean, if we care, who are we caring about? Building, the people?
No, this is all about people.
Where is it that how do I know in this that person A is caring for person B?
Well, it's because
it says that Carlisle values its sense of community and the well-being of all its residents. Is that people?
But what in this is making one resident care for another?
well, it's not one resident. I don't think it's down that granular, RJ. I think this is a community, as an aggregate. And do the residents that make that aggregate put resources into these various goals in order and which then demonstrate that they are a caring community. So for instance, continue to support Carlisle's commitment to high quality educational opportunities for all. That is about people, and it's about making sure that all the people in the community, no matter what their age, have educational opportunities. If we didn't care about it, if we don't, it's like if we were to say, well, we only care about the 8 to 15-year-olds, but the seniors can go punt if they want to take a class. Who cares? Then we don't care about this. That would show that we didn't care about some portion of the community.
Kate, I'd say housing is the thing that I think is really, over the decades, always stands out as something that's very important to people, and then we don't solve it. But, and I, so I live on Bellows Hill Road, and two people who grew up here, were sort of house sitting for a couple of years, then they had to move to Leominster because they couldn't afford to stay in Carlisle. So, also the intergenerational, because when you have kids in school, there is that cluster, you get to know people who have kids in school. But then if you look at this group, we're all kind of, Mary Lynn's still a youngster, but, and Dan, some of you guys are younger.
And, yeah, youthful Dan.
We all are kind of, you look at the people who respond, and we're sort of like the over 50 crowd, maybe, which is the new 30. But anyway.
I'm almost there.
So how do we sort of combine those? And you also fall off and don't see people as much, so.
If I could jump in, Laura, I think what you touched on there was we haven't solved housing.
Right.
We have solved education, and there's nothing here that's a zero-sum game that says we're going to unsolve it if we choose other things to build up. And I also believe that the intergenerational thing, and particularly talking about a community center that my vision of is beyond what's been planned, that has, things like gallery and performing spaces and things like that really could actually make money, which is a whole nother can of worms. So, but it's, I'm just saying housing first, and this isn't, because we haven't solved it.
Right.
On that bullet point, that first one, increase the range of housing options to meet diverse community needs. So forgive me if this has already happened and I'm blanking on it, but have we done a community needs assessment in Carlisle? Because I'm curious about what these diverse community needs are.
We did one 5 years ago, which is now expired. It was performed by a group of volunteers. I, as the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, just got a grant to do a new one. It's a partial grant, so we'll have to kind of, flesh that out. But we are going to have the MAPC, which is the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, help us so that we will have a professionally done housing plan for Carlisle. And I think what we're going to, so to identify the needs, and then, but I don't think we'll be able to fulfill those needs in any sort of quick manner. The last housing plan specified 9 houses per year, and it was kind of put in place as a moratorium for 40Bs, to kind of a safe harbor for 40Bs. This next plan, we're hoping, will be actually a real plan that can really be implemented in this town.
Gotcha.
So needs, I think, didn't they kind of come out and say people who work in the town or teach in the town can't afford to live in the town? That's one sort of population. And the other population, which I've actually seen quite a bit, is that older people move out because they can't afford, the taxes are really high for the school, that kind of thing. And they move out for reasons. So those are the two.
Yeah. And then there's not enough diversity, so for a smaller place for them to move to, because
Right.
and less expensive, because if they're moving because they're priced out by the taxes, they have to have a less expensive place to be living in. If they're moving because they just don't want to take care of a 2-acre big property, there still aren't enough choices for smaller place for them to move into. And it,
Which to
whatever.
me, there's demographic data available about income and age, and that it can inform a lot of that. What underlies the needs assessment for sure.
Dan,
We're going to have to deal with the 2-acre thing. It's the elephant in the room. If you want to have housing that's more affordable, never mind what the state calls affordable. It has to be affordable for people to build it and own it. So that's an issue.
I think that this is one of the main points in this macro goal. This is at odds with a lot of the other goals, like the rural character and preserving the historical value of things and whatnot. Driving more development kind of goes in the face of those. So that's a hard one to do, right?
well, if you, let me go to that picture.
I don't think it's a zero-sum game there either. I think
Yeah.
You make choices. You're not trying to completely change the character of the town by any means. It would be unsustainable.
By going to this kind of development where you just, we don't use any of the vacant land, we just kind of densify in place. That would give, for instance, some of the elders a chance to realize some of the equity, pull out some of the equity in their properties by subdividing it and selling off part of it, or selling development rights on that property, if it's perkable and if there's enough water. But that would be a way of there wouldn't be one place that was totally dense. It wouldn't be a 55 unit apartment house or whatever else. It would be, it would, I think, densify without feeling more dense, because you would actually be preserving more open space by not subdividing the bigger parcels into 2-acre zones.
I do think that's, this is this kind of plan is an important component in developing those that housing plan. The more housing options is what I'm trying to say, right? And you're going to have this sort of roadmap.
Yes.
That's a really important one.
So these are good maps to be looking at. So there's one map that Jan showed us. That's where, people just put accessory apartments in a, maybe they have a barn on their property, they fix it up into a house. They might even build another building, which is another house, or they might make it, a duplex sort of thing. This one is more like the wood. This is right here. This part here is really the Woodward Village, that new buildings, that they're putting, which is a dense, rather dense village. But they've maintained 36 acres behind it. Mind you, they weren't terribly developable because of the wetlands and stuff, but they're still open and you can walk through them, which you wouldn't have been able to do had they divided it up into 2-acre parcels and put the same number of houses on that same amount of land. So you could do that in a couple of, spots, which would then also possibly, mind you, those are, again, not terribly affordable. They're $800,000 and $900,000. But for the people that are just downsizing, maybe they're still affordable. And then there was this, which is a totally different concept of just having it development.
Yeah, this one's a horrible idea.
It's a character killer.
Yeah, this one's not good. You said for slide 13, you said those were ballpark 900,000, whatever. What about like slide 14? Is there any sort of similar ballpark number for these kind of things?
No, it would be whatever the person who's subdividing their own property and building on, or, makes it.
Because it's not a big development with a bunch of houses, just.
No, it's not a development. This is just, you know, this is, yeah, just allowing people to put more on their own land to realize some money without having to sell the entire property.
So between 13 and 14, slide 13, slide 14, which one nets more houses, would you think?
You know, I don't know.
And these are more clustered. There's certainly more red spots on the other slide, but these are more clustered here. It's hard to tell.
Well, you know, these are, well, what they did for these spots is every single one of those spots is a house that was built before 1962, I think, or four, which they, by right, by the way, already can do this. They can already put an accessory
Second.
apartment.
Oh,
Duplex or yes,
duplex.
1962.
60, 50, no,
62.
62.
62.
Right. And then there, you know, so what would happen, I guess the question would be, is what would happen if we went up to 1975 instead of 62? You know, and in fact, the other requirement, by the way, is it's 1962 and you had to have lived in it for, I can't remember, 10 or 15 years.
Are there's still acreage requirements for that?
No. But you still, but you have to go to Board of Health and make sure that you have enough water and that you have enough place to put the septic.
Yeah.
So not everyone will be able to do it.
I'm sorry, I'm being my usual dominant self here, but the thing about clusters is that you can trade, you know, as the open space community idea gives you trade-offs, gives the town some more conservation land, but allows higher density and closer proximity to the housing. It also allows you to buy into different wastewater technologies than the single family or the accessory apartment. They're not cost effective otherwise.
I took us on a conversation. I was trying to make the point that the housing one, the point I was trying to make that started this was the housing one is complicated in my mind. It's important, but it's also complicated.
No doubt.
Yeah.
The it looks like we're going to be cut off in about 50 seconds, 49 seconds. So
20 minutes already? Wow.
I think so, yeah. So I guess what I would say is I think that the value statement and the goals that come off of that to me look good, and I can't think of additional ones. But I am curious, you know, referring back to my question about the needs assessment, and it sort of echoes a little bit of what RJ was saying, is that, oh, you know, caring community. Are we actually a caring community, and what do we care about? I'm hoping that information and those responses will drive this process a bit to see what, in fact, we're interested in doing, and if, in fact, they line up with these.
I would kind of agree, Dan, because if we're such a caring community,
Hi, Deb.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay.
You're like in some weird outer space Star Trek.
I'm in Doctor Who's TARDIS.
Oh,
Because
that
coolest back, I mean, as in physically felt, made me feel cool.
is- That's
It's so like, yeah, anyway. And now everybody thinks I'm some sort of Trekkie weirdo, but never mind.
Laura, sorry you got cut off. We can't hear you.
Okay.
There you
Hello. Everybody, and welcome to the caring community. I hope this one goes a little more smoothly. It was a little fraught for the first time. And Laura was in the middle of a sentence when we got whisked away. And so, okay. And we wasted a lot of time in the beginning because I didn't know how to, it's not that I didn't know how to share. Well, I knew how to share a screen, but I didn't know how to share the slide deck. So here we go. I will try to try this again.
Hey, can you turn off that always use subtitles on the side at least? And that'll give the
Always.
slide a little bit. Do you see that? Always use subtitles, the sidebar on the right. We're seeing your whole PowerPoint screen as opposed to just.
Yes,
the
which
slide.
is when I just, okay, so on the right, always use, it's not on.
No,
No, it's,
it's on the right of the screen in the right column. Yeah, just click the little box at the top and that'll make your screen be a little bit
Oh, I
bigger.
see.
yeah,
Gotcha.
you can just, you can,
Sorry. Okay, see, because I can't tell what you're seeing and what I
Yeah, we're seeing your whole PowerPoint screen as opposed to just the slide.
know, but if I click just the slide, apparently nobody could see anything when I did this. When I did the play from the current slide. Now, can you still see the slide?
It doesn't change.
no.
Same.
Yeah, okay, so I will escape and just do this. Okay. So this is a caring community, and I'm going to go to the next slide because I just think it's a better slide. And the value for the caring community says that the Carlisle values natural resource conservation, resilience to climate change, and reduction of the community's impact on the natural environment. And so I think the first question that we have is, does this value ring true for Carlisle?
I think you're on the
You're
environment.
on environmental stewardship.
Oh, sorry. Jeez.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm okay. I'm okay. It's not going any better than the first time. Next time I do this, it'll get better, but please speak up when I'm flubbing. Carlisle values its sense of community and the well-being of all its residents. Does that vision ring true for Carlisle? And I know Laura, go ahead. Laura, you should start us off because I know you have a comment about that.
Because Don, right? Don, who's not in this group now, at the end said something like, well, but are we a caring community? Which I thought was sort of interesting. And, you know, I think people would like to think that, but, you know, we just spent most of our time talking about housing and everything, and nothing's happened, you know, for the decades that I've been in Carlisle. If we really were this caring about that, because I said diversity is a goal that's not, I mean, diversity of its population is a goal that's not on this list, we would have done something by now. So that was how he ended it, and I also added that. So one can argue with me.
I mean, as people say, you don't move to Carlisle if you want to be chummy with your neighbors. There's a reason we have 2-acre lot minimums. So you don't need to see your neighbors. It is a community, but it's, you know, it's where I would go if I was in witness protection.
So you're not part of a caring community, Philip?
I think we do care, but it's, you know, it's kind of the distant caring.
Right.
Well, it's interesting to me that, you know, talking about caring, yes, we care, but what do we care about? So the very first slide, you know, at the beginning of the presentation was, we care about open space. You know, we as a town seem to care about open space and protecting that more than other things. So I think it's the level of priorities is, you know, what do we care about the most? What do we care about next? What do we care, you know, just in terms of, so I think Carlisle is caring, but I think people have different priorities.
I agree with you.
So I would say that I think the priorities change also as the longer you live here. Because almost everybody I'm looking at here have, in this group has moved here probably for education, number one. And at this point, most of us have our children not in the local school system. So then we'd say, well, we really like the environment, you know, that sometimes. So I think it becomes fluid as people are here. I guess the housing option, I think, is very difficult because I see it as almost twofold in that we don't, we want to have more diverse housing. And yet at the same point, the folks that we're looking to potentially maybe encourage to move into town, we don't also have this infrastructure that they might need. I mean, we are very much a car-driven environment here. And so we have no public transportation. Yes, we have different things with the COA, the lifts and things of that nature, but for the working community, you really need to be able to drive.
Yeah, but there are a lot of places where you have to drive, but let's say teachers all have cars, right? Um, people graduate from college, and if they wanted to come back to Carlisle and you're in your 20s or 30s and you have a car, but you can't live here.
Right. I mean, any rental unit counts as affordable housing. Not that we're talking about affordable housing. I think we're talking about just diversity in housing. But there are a lot of people who rent, and most people who rent might have a job to pay for that, who need a car to, there are a lot of people. I mean, this is my first house. We rented houses before and we had cars. So I think that, there are just a lot of different needs for different types of housing. And I think it's good to keep a broad, scope of, picture of what that can be. It can be a variety of different things.
True. True.
I mean, one of the, the long-term issues that I think as the whole country faces is increasing population. And it looks as though kind of the Western world is heading towards zero population growth. I mean, there are some countries that are doing significant contractions. And I'm not convinced that adding lots of people to Carlisle is kind of the way of the future. I think it's going to be, it's the richer people get, the fewer kids they have. And as society grows, they have smaller families. I mean, which there's all sorts of societal issues that no country has yet figured out, or communities yet figured out. How do you deal with a contracting population? There are so many things that only work because stuff is growing. I mean, pension payments require, more people younger than you than there are to fund you. So I get nervous when I see, well, in order to meet the town budget, we need to add a lot more housing because that's going to bring in a lot more people. And then say, well, and then we need to all reduce our ecological footprints. I just don't see how that's a long-term viable.
Well, I think one of the options for housing was to be able to allow people to add on to their houses, to have, in-law apartments. Kate called them something else, accessory apartments or something, so that you could have people coming in, may not have kids. Japan's shrinking too. Have you hear that China said they can have 3 children now? They must be shrinking too. We're all shrinking. Well,
Laura, don't we already have that? I thought we already had the auxiliary.
We have very good zoning for accessory apartments, some of the most flexible in the Metro West area. But the problem is that we have Title V, which is the killer. You've got to sink $40,000 into the ground in order to extend your septic. That is the problem with the accessory apartment issue, and it's a state issue. It's not actually a town issue, and that's so.
And the wells as well.
Well, the well is, they presume you have a well that works, but if you need to expand your house, you need to have more bedrooms. That means Title V. It will ask you to extend your field and put a bigger distribution thing in, and it's very, very expensive. On top of building in an expensive time. It's hard to make it add up.
Right. So one of the other things that I saw under this part was also encouraging more volunteering. And I think that in my mind, that somewhat goes along with the housing, because in our years here, the community has become much more expensive. And when we first were here, you didn't have to have generally a two income household to really sustain living here. But it seems like that is becoming much more common, so that we're getting less volunteers being able to participate in things. So, and I don't necessarily know how we can deal with that situation, but in my mind, it does seem to go somewhat hand in hand.
I agree.
It's also a lot more demanding when you're a volunteer. And it takes too much time. I had to stop being on the energy task force because I was just spending all my extra hours writing reports for the state, because they want transparency.
Well,
And it would also, I'd also add that not just volunteerism in terms of town hall and the committees. If you have children at the schools, you would notice a drastic reduction in the number of parents that can volunteer at the schools, which has had a pretty serious impact there as well.
yeah. And so one of the thoughts that I was thinking is that I know that they do something for the seniors, and we all talk about keeping the taxes down for seniors, which I totally agree with. And so they can do the community service hours or whatever have you. I don't know if we expand that more to include, say, some other folks. Maybe that is a way to encourage more people to be able to come into town, that if we did something of that nature, some of the stuff maybe we pay for, that we could get somebody to do as a job for tax purposes. I don't know.
Or even some sort of incentive for volunteerism.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they're paying people to get the COVID shot, right? I mean, but
right.
it's because it's just, that is one of the big changes I've noticed. Because I do believe everybody still does support education as much as possible. We have things like CEF that clearly are paying for other things beyond what we are paying for just as taxpayers with the school, which I totally support too. I think there are some things that as taxpayers we don't have to be paying for.
And another sort of point about the volunteerism aspect is that, you know, with it being more and more a two-parent working family, that leaves less time for people of a different demographic, like younger people getting involved in town service, or people with, you know, younger kids who can't be left, you know, home alone. That weeds out. I mean, most of those people can only send even one of their voters to town meeting.
Right.
You know, that's a big issue there too. Or just, you know, in terms of, well, I was just in the connectivity forum, so that goes with that.
Well,
Yeah, you know, anecdotally, Kate knows my husband, Alex Para. So when we had our twins were young, we have 3 kids, they're all in their 20s now. He was on the conscom and it was just like way too much. I was on CEF, but they were a little older. Now he's back on conscom because they're all in their 20s and out of the house, which is sort of funny, but it says it exactly.
yeah. And Laura, I do think there, you know, there have been a handful of people that can do it both, you know, and do it very well, like you guys did, and Mary Lynn, and you know, that work and do a bunch of things. But I think the majority folks would say, I'm working, I can't do any, you know, I can't help. So I don't know how kind of to deal with that. It is just an interesting thing. And I think like even with fostering the intergenerational things, that also can be volunteer oriented too, which it had been for years with the poetry reading in the schools. And I think in my mind, if you get the older folks involved with the school age kids, then it's not just the school, it's little Sammy's school or it's little Joey's school. It takes on a different meaning. But those are some of my, I guess, prejudices or whatever.
Do you think among these goals, is there, you know, one that has higher priority than others, or?
Well, I mean, the one that is, which also with the open space that did over 70%, Kate, was the education. So since that is one of the goals, I think that, in my mind, that would take over precedence over any of the others. But I don't necessarily think it always should.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's the education is why I think a lot of people move to Carlisle, and is what drives the value of the housing stock here. I mean, we pay far more than you do 15 miles away for the same, because of the education, is my feeling. And that's not something that I think it'd be wise to throw away.
I think housing is actually, the diversity of housing is the most important thing, because we have this whole missing lot of housing for people who are divorced, or single people, and we need to be more inclusive.
Employees, town employees, teachers, firefighters, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree. It's good for our kids to grow up with kids whose parents also may have a lower income.
And also, I'm not sure which goal to throw this out under, but it definitely falls under the caring community umbrella, would be establishing Metco in the Carlisle Public Schools. So because right now our kids don't have access to that, all the benefits of that program, yet their Concord counterparts do, all the way from, you know, their younger grades up through high school. Our kids get to be a part of that community when they get to high school, and we're one of the only communities really around here. I mean, Bedford has, you know, there are a lot of communities near us that participate in it, and I think that would be a great addition to Carlisle.
I agree.
Can we, guys, or are we, for timing, can we do it? I know with a lot of the school regulations, kids can only be on the buses for 45 minutes at any time. This was years ago when I taught in Boston. I don't know if it's still the case. Is there anything with that with Metco? And because are we just that much further away too? That's also an issue.
Could we do it with Lowell? I mean, you know.
I know,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
yeah.
That's an idea. Yep.
But then
It's interesting that I looked into this not too long ago, and there are a handful of communities that have students from Springfield. And so I was also wondering that, and because Metco stands for metropolitan, you know, it doesn't mean just Boston students, I think, but also like the fact that Bedford, you know, and there's Dover, Sherborne, you know, they're all pretty far out. I don't know the answer to that question about transportation, but I do think Lowell would be an ideal, that would
Yeah.
be so fantastic.
you'd
A lot
have
of
to get the high school to agree.
What, Deb?
You'd have to get the high school to agree to take Lowell students as well as Boston students.
Yeah.
Because when they go from up to the high school, they have to go to CCHS.
Whoa.
So I am hearing though that there is a goal that you would add to that list, and that is finding a way to have, if not more diverse residents, at least more diverse school population.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely falls under the caring community aspect.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that would need to happen for that goal to be achieved. We'd have to get permission from CCHS, and we'd have to have Metco expand their area of influence sort of to Lowell or to other communities that would maybe be closer to us.
I think it's a goal worth exploring heartily.
Yeah, a lot of capable people, volunteers and
Yes, absolutely. It's
at
a
my
very
list.
popular notion at the school. I mean, it's a lot of parents in town want that, and especially now with the whole DEI, you know, diversity, equitable, and inclusive efforts that are happening. It's, you know, there's a movement here, and I think people want to be a part of it.
Okay. So do you disagree with any of the goals that are up here?
The dog might.
Yeah, I think she's trying to let me know something.
So, all right, Kate, the one thing I might want, I think, expanding policy for services to meet all the regardless of age and all that stuff.
Yes.
We're saying the seniors, what about the earliest population? Because
Good question.
I know we do a bunch for seniors, and we've got a very good functioning COA, which is wonderful. And I'm just thinking, supporting some of the newer people, the new moms, the new dads.
Preschool.
We
Pardon?
have 3 minutes left. Preschool, yeah, we've lost a lot of preschools. I'm
Yes.
living in my house because my kids, we were living in Concord and I was driving up to here to the preschool, and the house across the street went up for sale. So, so preschool, okay.
Yeah.
There's the Carlisle's Kids Connection though, which is very active, or used to be very active. That's how I met most of
Do we still have after school? My kids all went to the after school.
Yeah, the Carlisle Kids House.
Is that what it's called now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the recreation programs, sometimes they have the brick building at CPS now, and they do some programs. It's hard to remember though in the time before COVID, and what will be happening, but there is a huge need for after school care and activities, especially for the younger kids.
Yep. Really good idea.
Okay,
So
so that
we'll
would
probably-
be support services for working parents is
Yes.
part
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we could do it, intergenerationally, where there could, if there were an intergenerational space. I hate.
Yes.
I'm.
So, yeah, so the caring community, one of my issues is that we do supposedly have the community room at the school.
Yes.
And the only thing I've ever known it being used for was the chorus. And yet when we went to get it, I happened to be involved with CEF at the time, and we were supporting it. And I think he gave money, I don't remember, but I remember being told and telling folks that we were going to be able to use it as a community. And I think we really have to look into using that as a community instead of just the school.
And-
Agree.
And if we can't use it, I think, it's a case of, once burnt, twice shy.
Yeah.
Why is this next community thing going to work better than the previous one that we paid for and can't use?
Correct, because it has its own entrance way, and you can exclude it from the school. So I think that could be a very useful entity and should be.
So
Agree.
care, and we should use it so other people will use it.
Seconds.
8 seconds.
Woo. Nice to see you
Bye.
all.
My laptop has 11 minutes left.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, we have people kind of trickling back in. So David, I know you're working hard at cranking out these groups one more time. Thank you so much, and thank you to the facilitators. I know I've been trying to hop around, but I spent a lot of time in Bob's group the last time around, and it's been great to kind of listen in on these discussions. So hopefully the third time will be the charm, where we don't have technical issues getting into these groups. I think we had fewer people this time around that needed help, but we'll be happy to help you get into your groups this third time as well. So you have another opportunity tonight to join a group relating to a topic of interest to you. And I'll let you know when those groups are ready to launch. And then again, at the end of the meeting, we'll make sure to share in the chat again the link to the committee page, where when the survey is launched later in June, we'll make sure to get that out to you. And we'll also make sure, of course, that the information gets sent about it. So I believe there's a place on the website as well to make sure that you're signed up for the email list relating to this process. So if you don't think you are, if you didn't receive any email notifications about this, for example, maybe visit the site, make sure we have your email address so we can make sure to get the survey and any other opportunities out to you. But so it looks like the join breakout group option is launched. So take your pick for this last round. Thank you so much to the facilitators.
You're muted, Kate. You're muted.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. So you hit record, right? Because it wasn't me. It was said it's,
I hit record at the beginning, so I think it's just recording everything at this point.
okay, that's good. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Bob. And David.
Last one, best one.
Hi, Jerry.
Let's hope, because I've messed up the first two, something royal.
Oh, you're great.
Mary Lynn, are you here as a citizen or a reporter?
I am, no, I'm here as a citizen, but I'm taking notes for the master plan. Well, not that page, there's other pages.
I'm Mary Lynn. Thank you for the very flattering article.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for an excellent interview. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, there's Ray. Okay, this is
Laura's
like,
back for more.
hi, Ray. Yeah. Let me see, who else do we have here? Laura. Laura, you're a glutton for punishment. Okay,
I think I care.
I'm good. That's good. That's good. All right. Let us get started, I guess. Poor Laura. I'm going to share my screen. Share. There we go. We're here in the caring community room, and this is the little the first slide. But I'm going to go to this one, which tells us one at a time what, first of all, it fleshes out what the vision for the caring community. The caring community is just kind of a title. The vision is that Carlisle values its sense of community and the well-being of all its residents. And the goals that were under that were increase the range of housing options to meet diverse community needs, foster opportunities for intergenerational spaces, services, and programming, expand policies and services to meet the needs of all residents, regardless of age and ability, including Carlisle's growing senior population. Continue to support Carlisle's commitment to high-quality educational opportunities for all, and to encourage and support resident participation and volunteerism. So the first question I have for the group is, does the Carlisle values its sense of community and the well-being of its residents ring true for Carlisle?
Well, I think it does. Well, of those points, some are aspirational and some are affirmative, in that it's saying continue to do things that we're already doing, and that's fine. The first 3 points, I think, are the most challenging. I think most people would agree with them. How we achieve them is an interesting question.
I mean, Jerry, I would say that the fourth one is somewhat in conflict with the first one. You're muted out. I don't know.
Were you going to respond, Jerry, or do you want to actually amplify, David? Because why do you feel those are in
Yeah,
conflict?
okay. So I think, I mean, we were having this conversation in the prior breakout about, I think, I don't know what it was, character, which is very similar, I guess, to caring. Yeah, I don't disagree with the statements. I think the point I made in the prior one is that we do actually have a reasonable amount of intergenerational diversity. We have a little bit of cultural diversity in our growing sort of primarily Asian and East Asian East and West Asian, I guess, population. But we don't, and we probably never will have true economic diversity. And part of the reason for that are the other things we value, one of which is sort of open space, which goes to, our zoning situation. But another one is actually our commitment to higher education. It's expensive. It's expensive to run this town in the manner that the citizens want it. And so when we get to housing and how we're going to do that, and Kate knows this very well, we're bumping our heads against the sort of economics of it. So I don't like typically Pollyannish statements. I think, if you make a statement and you believe it, you have to back it up by really, calculating. And so to say we want housing diversity, we want economic diversity, we've got to then confront the things that we love about the town, and what are we going to give up on that to make that happen? And it's just I just want to point out that education, which is 2/3 of the budget dollar, is kind of running against that idea that you can have sort of affordability.
So you see this as kind of a zero-sum situation?
Yeah, I do actually, especially if you overlay, the other things that the Kerry Kissingers of the world are promoting, which is, 3% growth, budget growth. You were in that breakout session, I think, Jerry. He says that's too much. I think it's fine, but, and plenty of wealthy people around town will say, I don't care. I love the town. Give me a 10% tax bill. I love the town. But other people say, no, I can't afford that. So, I mean, we got to be self-analytical and not, we got to just true up those things. I'm not against subsidizing people that can live here so that we can have a broader swath of, economically diverse citizens, but we got to understand that we will be subsidizing those people.
David, I'm going to respectfully disagree, because a lot of this has to do with the fact that people's expectations in town have been shaped in a way that has become excessive from a historical point of view, and even from I think a reasonable modern point of view. I'll take the school as an example. You're saying we can't have the same level of high quality education if there are more people in school and we don't raise the budget. When my kids were in school, the typical class size was 22 to 24, not the 14 to 15 it is now. And I don't recall my kids getting a bad education. In fact, they got a superb education. So the fact is that we've somehow ratcheted up expectations that high quality education means this particular size of classroom, as opposed to this kind of support, or this kind of experience, or this kind of personalized service. And so if the school were to accommodate more students at the cost of somewhat larger classrooms, I don't see necessarily that that's going to cause a decline in educational quality. And that would permit us to, in fact, have a range of housing options that would bring more people to town without increasing the cost of the school budget.
I think,
Kay, and I'll make the point that, as Kay in the previous meeting pointed out, that the police blotters is full of absurd complaints where people, call about their neighbors' bees are on their property and things like that. Again,
Roosters.
And roosters, yes.
No,
25 years ago, the state police were the only resource for night patrols in Carlisle. 35 years ago, I'm sorry. It was a long time ago.
but, so poor Kate, this is my third time. I'm not going to try to talk too much, but this topic, a lot of these topics I find fascinating. So 25 years ago, I was on the Housing Commission with Ed Son, who's, I don't know what happened, he's probably dead. Anyway, nothing happened. Nothing still has happened about housing. So obviously, everyone said they care, but like you're saying, David, well, if you want open space and you want to, you don't want to have a lot of businesses and everything else, then maybe we care, but we don't care enough for the housing. But I agree. I think the town would be really much better if there were people of different socioeconomic levels and everything else. It'd be good for the school, it'd be good for everyone, but maybe we can't be that way.
Well, I want to reflect on that and also push back on Bob a little. So on that point, and I spent, most of you know, I think I spent 6 years on school committee and 9 years on finance committee. So, I have some experience in both of those things. I would say that schools, I'm very interested from the school side in bringing in Metco for a bunch of reasons might not be the right program, but bringing in kids and educating those kids in our school system and giving them the opportunity. And there's a lot of data that suggests if you do that, those children benefit tremendously from that experience. And that's a way to reach out to the broader community without getting tangled in the economics of housing. So that's one thought piece. I don't want to, I'll leave it at that. But Bob, this is not 35 years ago. It's just not. Now, you may have been fortunate that your kids were just good students in the general ed, but I've got to tell you, at least a third of the kids are special ed now. And all the data points to smaller class sizes, special education resources. It's just not that way anymore. And it's absolutely delusional to think that we could once again go back to 800 plus kids, which is what it was when even I moved in 17 years ago, and have this flat economics. It just won't work with today's model.
So David, our last group, we're talking about Metco, and then we were saying, well, Metco, we're far from Boston, something else. What about Lowell?
Right. And I've been a promoter. I've been, if you look at Metco, I mean, I don't know, we don't have much time, but if you look at Metco has 2 communities, Boston and Springfield, and all the other towns, Wellfleet, Wellesley, Newton, all the rich towns, they're all competing for the Boston kids. Nobody's addressing Lowell. And I've said, we got to start a Metco program for Lowell. That's a long-term, multi-year thing, but people have to commit to it. That can work. And one of the tragedies, in my opinion, on the whole, and Kate knows this very well, she's heard me pontificate, on the tragedy of the quote unquote affordable housing is it's so town-centric. Yes, I agree. Yes, we should have people in town, but we could have people in Lowell who is like 10 minutes away that we help if we took a more regional view. Lawrence, there's plenty of need around here, and we are a rich town and we can address that need and we can bring that diversity in, but we have to rethink the model, and we're just not doing that. That's what's frustrating.
Well, that's what we need to do. And Lowell, I think Lowell would be an obvious, it's our neighbor.
Right, I agree. I totally agree.
Cool.
But there's a lot of work behind that, Laura. I mean, that there has to be a collective effort, a big collective effort, and we can do it, but we have to go to Metco. We have to propose a region, and it takes several years. And if we're committed to it, and maybe we can drag Westford along or some of these other Concord, we could drag them along and become a region, a satellite.
Maybe Bedford. Okay, well, Kate, select board. Kate, remember that. Remember David, and maybe I'll help too.
Okay. I probably shouldn't, but I've also had a lot of experience. I've lived in Concord. I was on the Concord School Committee, and so I have some experience with the Metco program. And then there were 3 Black men, or actually 2 that lived in our neighborhood, Black families. And I just want to say that my children were friends with the Black children who lived in town, but they made no friends among the children who were the Metco kids, even though they were all in the same classroom. So
part of that, Kate, is the drawback of Metco, the way it's structured. When the poor kids have to go an hour each way each day from Boston, it's very difficult to have those friendships. But Lowell's not that far.
No, I get that, but I just wanted to put that little data point out there.
That's true. They all stay together.
I had a long interview with Andrew Nemecki at the CCHS. He's the Metco director there. He's now
He's a good guy. He's a really good guy.
He's a great guy, and I think he would be a great resource for this. But one of the interesting things that he said was that part of the problem is that the kids come in and there's such a small number of them that they are uncomfortable branching out into the larger group, and they stick together. And it's really hard to get the kids, they see each other, they recognize each other, and they stick together. And he said, if you bring them in, even at a younger age, when they're more open-minded, they're fine for a couple of years. When they get to the high school level, all of those fears and anxieties come
Yeah,
back.
although, I participated in a couple of the sort of sessions that they had last year, I think it was last year, where the Metco kids from the high school sort of shared their experiences. And those who did start in Concord at an early age had a much better experience. And we are, we're K through 8. So if we got them in the K through 2 region and we kept them in, and they may not even go to high school here. I mean, we have to rethink this whole thing. There is a lot of data that suggests that even if you put them in, say, I'll just pick a grade 2 through 8. So they had 6 or 7 years in here, and they go back to Lowell High School, which by the way is a decent high school. They will have gotten so much more enrichment. So you're right about what you say, and it gets more difficult, and there's all these cultural issues and but Kate said, you're not living near the kids and they have to drive, but there are ways to go around that, and it's small numbers. We can't try to be everything. We just influence a few people. We save a few lives.
Definitely worth trying, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just tell you from personally, I adopted 2 kids. I changed 2 kids' lives. It's 2 kids, but so what, so what?
Well, maybe we can introduce maybe 1 or 2 little cheaper houses for those parents from Lowell too. But,
housing, I mean, housing is just a tough deal, right? Yes, we can do that. 1 family every couple of years, maybe. And we're trying, Kate's certainly trying very hard to do that, but
I know
it's just tiny. It's just tiny. And it's maybe not the most important thing. I just don't feel like it's the most important thing. I think
Kate is also trying to work at the state level to get them to not have so many silos and to let us regionalize a little more, especially when they're talking about the carbon sequestration, because you have to cut down trees. And so I'm trying to let us, wheel and deal with the other towns that already have their 10% to trade credits.
Right. I mean, that would be a great thing. That would be a great thing. That's sort of the New
Another
Jersey.
work in progress.
But the legislature is not interested in that. They're interested in sort of politically correct, like make the rich towns, force the rich towns into this model, which is disappointing in my opinion. I would not commingle affordable housing with just trying to achieve a diversity target. I think we should just leave that and try to figure out a different way to do it.
Okay, but let's just talk about this goal to increase the range of housing options to meet diverse community needs, because there are other needs. There are some people who are trying to downsize, for instance, that they're retired and their taxes are going up, but their income is not. And so that's a need to maybe that we should maybe be looking at. So if we, for instance, let me see, go to this this map where basically all these houses are pre-1963 houses, or 62, I don't remember. And by right in town, you're able to have an accessory apartment, but maybe, if that were to be expanded, that program were to be expanded, or it changed insofar that we could say, well, you could subdivide, you could start to realize some of the, pull out some of the equity of your property by actually subdividing and being a little denser right there, so that people could afford to stay in their house. Is that an idea that,
Has anybody, we've had, but I mean, Kate, we've had the AAA, out there for what, a decade?
Yes, but that, well, AAA, that won't work because that's an apartment and is subject to all kinds of state rules. Now, what I'm talking about is you actually be able to sell off development rights on your property.
Ooh.
So that you just get money. You don't have to now be the contractor or anything like that. The person, that buys it is the one that takes on all those expenses, gets a less expensive lot out of it because it's only half of a lot,
Yeah.
and builds a smaller house on it because it's not
Do
as
they
big a
share,
lot.
do they share a well in that
Well,
model?
I don't know if they share a well or if it has to both perk and have water. I think those are arrangements that are made. But the thing that gives the person that owns the property is that they be able to stay in their own home without, and get money.
But do you
Well,
lottery out the money, or I don't know how you pick that.
That raises an interesting question. I mean, what that is essentially doing is moving from 2 acre zoning to 1 acre zoning.
Yeah, but not
Exactly.
universally, not universally.
Well, except you
really-
age up, what you're suggesting is you age into that if you stick around, right?
Yes.
I worry, I don't know the answer, but I do worry about water. Now, can the
Yeah.
town sustain 1 acre zoning? Well, maybe it could, maybe it can. I think,
Well, wait. No, you don't. I don't want you to say the town sustain 1 acre zoning. This is not 1 acre zoning. You
No,
are
it's
not
selectively 1
cutting
acre
the
zoning.
large lots. You're not cutting the trees down. You already have a house on this lot. You're just adding another house on that
I know,
lot.
but you're adding a well. I don't mind adding another house. I don't think that would.
Well, it's rental property for you or something like that. I mean, we were thinking about moving someplace and getting a 2-family, so we have rental property at some point, that too.
I like the rental option better because the owner still has some control and has responsibility. I worry about how it's an idea that should be explored, but I worry about how you auction off, or, how does that work? Like, how do you actually decide who's going to move in? And
Well, how do you decide if your neighbor decides to sell their house, how do you
well,
decide?
because you already have an existing well. I mean, you haven't changed anything. It's just the people. We're not a condo association. We're not checking to see
Yeah.
character.
Okay,
I'm
but
just saying, you haven't changed any footprint when you sell and somebody moves in. If you twin it and somebody else drills another well and everything else, another road, they have another access lane. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to that I don't know yet. I'm not against exploring it, but I just want us to understand that.
Okay.
we have 48 seconds. If anybody else
Now
wants
they
to.
give you another minute after that, but yeah, I mean, that's really at the core. I think this issue, I'm glad I went to the session because this is at the core. When you get done with all the pontificating and everything else, this is really at the core. Everybody says they want diversity. I heard it, many times in tonight's thing. And what does diversity mean? What is the cost of diversity? And what's the benefit? And we should really, that's worth, having a fair amount of town debate about. I believe.
Yeah, for real. I agree. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Raylan.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Hey,
I'll call
thanks,
you later,
everyone.
find out what Ben is doing.
I know. I was thinking about Kate. Yeah.
Oops.
Are we supposed to go back to the main classroom now?
Yeah, we are. They're
Sure.
gonna bump us.
Okay.
I didn't quite finish my thought there.
Oh, Jan, I'm sorry.
It's okay. This time I was trying to line it up exactly. Quite finished.
So I think we are pretty much all coming back here, right? Yes, awesome. So thank you everybody for hanging on and participating in these discussions. I'm going to go ahead and screen share really briefly just for some closing remarks. And I am also going to again put the link for the master plan page in the chat. And that has some just really great resources on it that I would encourage you to review. In fact, that's actually the first thing I'm going to pull up, just so in case people need to hop off. It's such a great resource, just another example of how dedicated your town is to this process. It's not something we see all the time, and it's so great. So if you scroll through, and if you're interested in joining on Sunday, when we say rebroadcast, essentially the first part of the presentation, we're just going to play a recording, a rebroadcast, and then the breakout groups will go live. Depending on attendance, if it's a small group, we may just conduct it all in one discussion, kind of looking to see how many people show up. But if you feel you didn't get to discuss something and you want to, that link is there. The document that lists all of the draft vision, values, and goals is up there as well. And when the survey, we want to give the community some time to think about this, reflect, ask committee members questions, you know who the members of the committee are. And then when that survey goes live, we will share it with you and make sure you are aware of it. The other thing that I think is so very important, if you haven't done so yet, is to, I know there's a place on here because I saw it before, to sign up for, if you haven't signed up for an email, to do so. And of course I can't find that now, but I know I saw it. So you're able to do that as well. And Mary Lynn, if I'm going crazy and wrong about that, certainly please. Oh, yep, right here. So under Mapping Carlisle's Future, there's a stay informed by joining our mailing list. So if you're not on that, I absolutely recommend that you do, so that you can be the first to know when the survey is live, and any other community engagement that we do over the course of the summer, which would be kind of on smaller scales, similar, to kitchen conversations or something like that, to give people time to kind of digest and think about moving into the next step, which is recommendations. So that's the first thing I wanted to share because I know people have to hop off. We aren't going to do a takeaway summary from each group because I know with 5 groups at 3 times, I mean, that would just be a lot. But what we will do, we will process the notes and recordings and figure out how best to manage that and get you all of the information needed. I'm just going to
Tell your friends and tell your friends about Sunday. We want to see you. The breakout groups were very good sessions.
Oh my gosh, they were so good. It was so great. I was so glad to hear the conversations I heard and really good points that people were making about, I think, starting to think about trade-offs and things like that. So again, just next steps, rebroadcast of this on Sunday. And then with the anticipated survey launch, we're working with our friends producing the survey. Our anticipated launch is around June 21st, but we'll make sure that once that's in place. And we're also working on kind of a virtual comment box as well, to kind of weigh in more about these as you have more time to reflect on them after tonight. But I strongly encourage you to visit that site and download the draft vision, values, and goals so you can kind of think about them and process them. But that is all that that we have tonight. And Jack, if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say a thank you to everyone that's still on. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all of our committee members for hosting the breakout groups. The ones that I attended were very helpful, as John indicated. I also want to say thanks, Alexis, to you and to David for doing a great job of running things behind the scenes. David Jang is our intern this summer, and we're really grateful to have him. And thank you for doing great work behind the scenes.
Really, very much.
Appreciate it, and was great. And I look forward to hopefully in the fall we can get out in person with our next community forum when we do one.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night.
Okay. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.